Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery.
Yeah. You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of you.
Welcome to a shot glass of recovery, the speaker series. I'm your host, Lisa M. This is where we share powerful, real stories from the speakers of AA Solution Seekers Toronto, my home group. People who are living the solution and walking the path of recovery one day at a time. If something you hear here resonates with you, we invite you to show your support by dropping $1 or $2 into our PayPal virtual basket. It helps us keep carrying the message and making these recordings available to others who may need them. Now let's get into today's speaker.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm an alcoholic from Scarborough. I got a home group called One Paragraph at a Time, and my name is Joe. Yeah, this meeting, Solution Seekers, has been a pretty useful one for me in my journey here. I don't know how I found it, but I'm glad I did. I think there's a lot of work that goes into this meeting, a lot of good members of Alcoholics Anonymous carrying the message dutifully, and I'm happy to be asked to share here today. That 45-minute time slot today, I think some people are going to get some time back this morning. I mean, I'm not trying to be the director anymore in my life, but I think that's what's going to happen. So let's just let it play out. Why do I keep coming to this meeting? And I don't know. I wake up on time these days. I start with prayer, and that evolves. Step 11 work evolves all the time. And then I got to remember that my best quality of life is when I put recovery first. And then from there, everything else seems to fall into place. So that's why a meeting like 7 a.m. Solution Seekers makes sense to a alcoholic of my type. Okay, the way I consumed alcohol, I did it often, lots of, very fun, alone, with others, didn't seem to matter. I'm one of those types of drinkers, alcoholics, who once I know there's the next pint of Guinness or the next tin of Guinness available to me, I already get the ease and comfort. I actually don't even have to consume it. It's just to make sure the search is underway, everything's been obtained, and the ease and comfort comes with that. My favorite place to drink was in public. You know, in Toronto 15 years ago, I don't think I was allowed to. I don't think we're allowed to still right now, but that's what I like to do. On trains, on streetcars, on buses, top of the line for me. And then I wouldn't litter. You see, I like to break even, not even get ahead in life. I just take those tins, throw them out. I don't need the operator of that transit saying there's guys drinking on this train, because I want to continue to drink on public transit. I like to drink with strangers, though I have lots of friends and still have good friends from childhood. But when I drink with strangers, I can show up very different every time. My best buddy, he's dead now. I'm the godfather of his kids. I think about this guy every day. I was in the rooms like 15 years ago. He was just right there with me. He didn't catch on. That's between him and his higher power. What happened there? I started getting into the big book work or working with a guy who seemed to know what he was talking about through the steps. My buddy was nothing wrong with this, but at the time I didn't think it made sense. He was going to meetings, where guys enjoyed not so much meeting after the meeting, but the social part, going to play euchre. I guess that's fine. Going bowling. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, that kind of stuff didn't kill my buddy, but it also maybe got him distracted. The point I bring him up already is him and I would just show up in these different groups of people. We're affable enough, even though we're both full of fear and grandiose and comatose at the same time. But we would just pretend to be different characters. Well, this guy was a short little Irish guy, but man, he said he was a model at one time. He played Division III soccer, not even Division A soccer. Said he was getting recruited by the lowest level of the English Premier League. An architect like George Costanza. All this mythology just to show up with different people, and it worked for him, and it worked for me. And at the same time, my life wasn't bad, but like my life consuming alcohol, I'm okay with it. Now here's the selfishness of it. It it's a tornado of experience that are affecting those who are still considering I'm worth hanging out with. So it's a tornado for my mother when I, would still live like I'm here today. Would I still live at their house? Do I come home tonight or not? Like, man, that's a lot of fear on a parent who's still around. It's a tornado for the employer. I was an unassigned guy, so I had to open buildings in the morning. I took transit. So underneath that subway, that supervisor can't even get in touch with me for those 40 crucial minutes. And then when I would get to the building, open what I had to do, they get a call from an administrator. Where is this guy? So that employer would say, what? And then she tried to get a hold of me. And now I have that role that supervisor has. And I spoke to her a couple of years ago. I go, how was I like to work with? She goes, I don't know, Joe. Every third day we thought you were dead. So that's a little bit of a torment of a type 3 warrior, which I am, but who was consuming alcohol at the time. I'm bringing on all these people. I'm just a worker. That supervisor doesn't need to think in her day that one of her staff die again from just being drunk and disappearing. Like that's what happened. My punctuality wasn't great, but my attendance was good because I never missed a day of work. But they couldn't find me. Just drift into the abyss, usually in the boiler room. So that kind of torment. What other torment do I cause others? How about these little part-time jobs I had when I was the timekeeper, a PA announcer at a local hockey rink? Saturday morning, 7 a.m. How often did that Saturday morning at 7 a.m. seem unattainable for me? Wake up in a snowbank, wake up in a town 40 minutes north of here, still up and down that Young Street bus, missing those shifts, wake up in a drunk tank. Like, so that kind of drinking behavior, though I said I like it, I like the ease and comfort I get from consuming alcohol, my repercussions really affect others in the moment. This is why I know I'm not a sociopath, and if anyone here is, that's fine. But in the moment, during that time, it would gut me that I was doing this to my parents, that I was doing this to friends, that I was doing this to employers. Like it did bother me. I come to learn later that this stuff that bothered me inside was actually a God of my understanding who has always been there, and I was just blocking with worldly clamor. I'm just blocking hard with insecurity, blocking, raging with anger. Back off, God, I got this. In comes some more envy. Back off, God, I got this. In comes some more directing. It's okay that I show up drunk to the arena to time keep little kids playing hockey. And the rationalization that goes through a drinker of my type, an alcoholic of my type, is absurd. My favorite way to also drink was not just in public, but sporting events. Like I would like going to events, and I'm very cheap. So I consume cans of alcohol, and I like brandy. I'm not here to make anyone thirsty, but that's this stuff I would bring into the arenas or the sporting event with me, and I'd walk in bigger than I look. Calves, like Tony Atlas, like this guy's a man, and not wearing shorts, but just tons of beer cans stuck in those calves. I guess at that time there was no metal detector checks, and I could buy beer but still consume. And that's what I did. And at these sporting events, yeah, I'm just a normal guy, but what was I really clinging on to? Two things. Gambling was one, and looking for problems. Like, I didn't grow up in a war-torn country. I grew up in Toronto. It's relatively safe, though I may not agree with everything step 10 politically, or tradition 10 politically, but it's safe here. So I like going to events to get into problems. I like fighting the number one authorities in these events. The security guys, Toronto police, right? Opposition fans. Like, I guess I had these ideologies that I'm really dying to prove who I am. And I said, maybe some arrests would help. Maybe I get a couple black eyes. I said, yeah, I've arrived. I fought another bouncer. So just bizarre stuff that I've come to realize now, because I was just this broken guy. I don't know why I'm broken, really. Unexplainable. Come from a nice family, loving family, nice home, didn't move around much. Not that that's a guarantee to become type 3 alcoholic, but I'm just so full of Joe abuse inside, such a terrible self-image, that I needed reasons for me to go to my first addiction, which was anger, and I get fueled by this dopamine that comes from fighting opposition fans in Hamilton. Like, I don't know if other people, maybe guys from Georgia, if they have a rival team. Like for me in Toronto, I liked football. There's this Toronto Argonauts team, and I would go to Hamilton literally to just look for a fight and to show up the next day at work with a black guy. So this is what I did. I fought the toughest guys. No, not the toughest guys, just guys who knew how to fight. They were trained. Why? To give me something to talk about, because I had so low self-worth. This is all fine and good until one time I wake up in a snowbank. I'm supposed to open a building. I don't. See, the toughest time I remember now drinking, I just shared this last night, was between like 3:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. If I can make it to 6 a.m., I make it to work. By 3:30, if I haven't, it's not that I'm a Casanova, but if I haven't found an acquaintance for the night, or if everything seems normal and I have made it back home, which is great, those 2.5 hours were hell for me. It was a point where I couldn't even consume anymore, but I guess I'm gonna. And if I drift off to sleep, will I wake up? Not because I think I'm gonna die. It's just I don't think I can wake up. I'll sleep around the clock. So that last time I wake up, it's a snowbank, it's overtime pay, and I just can't make that shift. About 1,000 people are affected and their families. That's fine. I'm not the only guy who's ever done that. I remember writing an honest email to the employer. I said, I regret what happened today. They didn't open that building for everybody. I do have a problem with alcohol. I'm looking for help, and I'll report to work until you say otherwise. That was a Saturday, Monday morning, 6:40 a.m. Email and a phone call. Joe, do not report to work. We're here to help, but don't come. That employer, some employers, I think everyone has to give someone a second chance if they admit maybe a problem with alcohol. That employer allowed me to go to a treatment center. It's an outside issue, not a prerequisite to get well in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember saying, yes, I'll do it. And I remember that time, my mom drove me up on her birthday, right? So I can't imagine what she's going through. I'm 28 at the time, man, I own a condo. I got a real job. It's okay. She drives me up there, drops me off, and who knows, my first experience. I don't know how that made her feel at the time. I've talked to her about it since. And I came in there, I guess, desperate enough to change. For some reason, the insanity of my life, this little spin cycle that was okay, but still affecting others, okay, but I'm not quite content, not broke, got enough money for whatever I need. I was in a place to learn, change, grow, and hear some new stuff. I had the gift of desperation. So that center was a halfway house. It was definitely, not judging other treatment centers, but it was just for dudes. Some guys were some guys were from this jail, Penetang. Some guys were like me, public sector workers. Some guys were on little court charges, just, but normally not mixed. Perfect. With no spa. It was just a lot of white carbs, I remember. A lot of food, but white carbs, good stuff. And I got 12 stepped, so this is outside the work there because we had free time. I got 12 stepped by some guy who was not a drinker. He was there for other stuff, who would say, yeah, I got this big book. He shows me that text Alcoholics Anonymous. There's about 1,000 circles in there, a lot of highlighting, and a little bit of lines that said, my little head wants to kill me. It's a liar. P to P, point to point. LNB, life's not my business. All these little notes. Some guys call it mucked. My guy gets kicked out. Before he got kicked out, we spent some free time, and he takes me through the first 88 pages of the big book, just in that downtime. And in that town, it was north of here, about maybe 2 hours north, maybe an hour and a half, I don't know. It's dead of winter. We had to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I went. We had to go 3 nights a week. I remember going to 5. I walked with guys who wasn't dangerously antisocial. And I remember buying a big book and a 12 and 12 from this guy. He was a home group member of that meeting up there. And he must have seen a million dudes just roll through his home group, likely not dropping anything into the 7th. Right? Probably not. I said, I'm going to bring these 2 books back. I'll have a new life. And this guy, Bill, he goes, Joe, when you get back to Toronto, you're going to just use these as coasters. That's what he had seen. But in the meantime, Joe, put the date in the home group and your name in the top right corner of the first page, just in case you remember this experience. Listen, I was quoting that big book for many years, man. I got dry after a while, but I was quoting that book. I haven't had a drink since that time in that treatment center. And that little thing about writing the date and the home group where I purchased AA literature, I still share that with others. I shared it with someone yesterday. They have an area assembly. Now I'm interested in general service. A couple of people bought service manuals. There was so much to learn in Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, "Oh, I remember the story." And I told the exact same story, but a little quicker, about just putting the note in the top right. When I look back, wow, Joe, I don't know when I bought that book, March 2011. So I leave that place, not before I get this roommate. You see, I realize God is always at work in my life, and especially if I kind of still linger in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe defiant, maybe still actually physically using stuff, maybe just here and not doing the steps, real insanity. I might realize that people are here just for a season, and I'm just here for a season, and I might be able to exchange some sort of hope and help. So I had this roommate. This guy was older than me, but I can't say a gentleman, but a real good looking dude. He had said he'd been to like 60 treatment centers, maybe 80. And he said, "Oh man, I never finished one of them." And he had this other alias, like Gargamel or something like that. And but for whatever reason, he was connected in Scarborough. He had a sponsor. And this guy, he said, "Joe, if I'm kind to myself and I kind of treat this treatment experience like a fridge, and if I'm willing to throw out as much as the old stuff as I can for this new experience of a new fridge, I could have this new life." So he was talking brief about experience. He could never complete a treatment center program, but he offered everything he could. He offered me comfort. He offered me experience. And then he was I guess, a painter. So just imagine, always grow he's nuts, but we're rooming together, and he paints me this picture, of a landscape, dark colors, mahogany and orange and brown. And on the back, he just writes this note, "Joe, be kind to yourself. Just walk with your higher power, Joe. Thank you." Wow, thank you. Anyway, that guy, I have that painting. It's still in my wall, and it's in my house. He dies not long after, right? But one day, I was at a meeting in Scarborough. It's the biggest meeting in Scarborough, a couple years back, and there was a female speaking from the podium, and she talked about the father of her kids and how the father of her kids was a good guy, but just he couldn't get it. But he helped a ton of guys along the way. I went up to there after that meeting. I said, "Was your husband or the father of your kids this, and this?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "That guy really helped me. He introduced me to my first temporary sponsor." And that home group at that time, it wasn't my home group. They purchased me a ticket. Some people might know there was something called the Ontario Regional Conference, right, in March. So one of those day trips back from that treatment center in 2011, that home group bought me a ticket so I could go, to that conference and be amongst, 2,000 members of AA. Just a real nice connection, right? So if I in turn can at least help a guy along the way by learning how to share with step one, honesty, self-honesty, I in turn can maybe just help this 12-step work continue. It will assure immunity from worrying for me. See, there's a good chance now that I likely won't pick up a tin of Guinness today. Very likely I won't. That'd be a real crazy Joe abuse to go through that. But what I learned going through the work with a sponsor is that I got a spiritual malady. I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, self-pity, self-seeking, and delusion. I'm addicted to worry and fear. It was suggested to me in the big book when I'm going through the work with my sponsor, not to rewrite the big book, but if the crux of the problem centers in my mind, and I usually, without recovery, wake up in a state of worry and panic, I was to just replace the word alcohol with worry. And I was to just read the big book with my name and not to say that I'm better than anyone, my gosh, but it was going to land differently. I was going to be more accountable. So on page 52, the bedevilments, if I turned it into questions, am I prey to misery and depression? This is me unrecovered. Yes. Am I have any real usefulness to others? No. Can I make a living? Not really. I'm very unmanageable. Whoa. To read the literature like that. So am I a type 3 worrier, a real Jekyll and Hyde, more and less insanely worried? Yes. Crux of the problem centers in the mind, spiritually dead. That was a game changer for me. And when I have an opportunity to share in a meeting, Of course, I'll just share in I statements. Of course, I'll just share about my experience. Two reasons. One, I'll become accountable. It'll land better. And this one's probably more important. I'll sound less of a director and it'll sound less of telling people what to do. Because if I start using words like you, because I think that's a normal way to talk, if someone's defined like me, that you will come across like pointing and I might turn someone off. I mean, that's between God and their higher power. But there's a chance if I keep saying you should, wow, might backfire. They might say, that idiot from Scarborough told me to do a lot of things when he was giving a talk Sunday morning. Plus, here's the key one. It's not attractive. I might come across as a promoter. That's no good either. So these are small little things that I learned along the way. But when I was dry, I mentioned the word dry. I know how I was dry, real brittle. What happened there is I had a home group, one paragraph at a time. Just that group celebrated 10 years. We've been through the big book 3 times in 10 years. You talk about a gauntlet just smashing. We had a long time just recently because we were in the chapter Two Wives. The chapter Two Wives is a fine read. When I can grow and start get out of pronouns and not worry about titles and just think about how do I react to the world here. There was a long timer. He said, Joe, I will not be back until 3 months because I can't get through this. This guy's a lovely gentleman. I said, are you sure? Is there nothing here to learn? He goes, Joe, I can't do it. I only share that is because my disease settles is in the mind. For some reason, that chapter, it's like when two people grow up in a house. One turns out to be a maniac. The other one can go to Harvard. Me and that guy were in the exact same meeting, reading the same literature, one paragraph at a time, but it's not sitting well with him for whatever reason. All I could say, because I really respect these long term, I said, well, maybe just talk to your sponsor about it. Like, what else can I say? So that home group goes through the book three times in 10 years. And it's got about 9 members. 2 more people just joined last Sunday because there's this gentleman up in Barrie. He's a good speaker. Everyone knows him, such a lovely guy. I remember from his talks from the podium, he'll say, I'm paraphrasing, nothing more useless than a group of Alcoholics Anonymous that attracts no one new. Right. So, thank God I'm part of a home group. What do we do between meetings? That's also important. What does that home group do between meetings? We try to show up with detoxes and service commitments where we can. We give to the, we give them the 7th what we can. We can't give hundreds. We're sent to our GSR, to the area assembly, to be the link between Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole in one paragraph at a time, right? And we provide a space that generally focuses on the solution. I mean, that library there, one paragraph at a time, just conference-approved literature. No need to get more distractions. I like to be part of a home group that focuses on the solution. I like to be part of a home group that I can make every day. That meeting is once a week, so I can make that one usually. Part of a home group that is big on the spirit of rotation. I don't share that often, and people share. And what we had to do to make sure we could attract some newcomers, because not everyone wants to take a beating in family afterward. Okay, so that's fine. So it took years for us to come to the group conscious that we would introduce a speaker meeting once a month at the end of the month as that option to show some flexibility. And what we used to do not long ago was a 25-minute share. And because the room would just be 20 people, people would share on the chair. It was interesting. A couple months ago, we had a guy, he was part of the group. We had moved away. And this is what he said. He's a good guy, defiant to the core, a real great mirror for me. And he's got a good sponsor who acts as a stop sign. But this is how this gentleman led his talk. And then we decided as a group to change our format. He led his talk with the words never. And if you don't like it, talk to your sponsor. So he would never change the way he starts his share. He said he would talk about outside issues because that's not a problem. And he did not believe in singleness of purpose. So just imagine, that's fine. It's just another member in AA, right? More or less insanely defiant. No problem. And I like this guy. And because this terrible self-image that I carried before I even drank has been in remission, because I'm working with gentlemen, because I have a sponsor, because I have some step 11 evolution work, after the meeting, I could pull the guy aside. I said, with a question, I said, there's a lot of content in your share, but I said, do you think you have to lead with such an attitude of words like never, and if it doesn't suit you, you can leave or talk to your sponsor? He goes, I don't know, Joe. I never thought of it like that. Had I not been able to have that chat with that guy, there's no way I could bring that story that affects me here today. Because if I couldn't talk to that gentleman, I would be gossiping here. But I got some self-respect now that I could talk to that gentleman and I can bring it up here. Why? Because it was helpful. Because maybe that guy realized, wow, what an honor and a respect to be able to share at Alcoholics Anonymous. Who knows if there's a new guy in there who only drinks vodka, never mind all sorts of outside stuff, which was help for all of it. So what that home group had to do is, because after that gentleman's share, I remember saying something about maturity and that I had to grow up and stop thinking that my way was the only way. I had to drop old ideas. Page 27, scales of prejudice might fall from my eyes if I start getting well in recovery and working with a sponsor. So that's what I was able to share. But that room, have you ever been in a room, maybe not an AA, but like a cafeteria or some sort of car ride where it's just deadly awkward and the elephant is there and it's just scathing? So that's how that room felt that night. That room of a home group I belonged to was not attractive to the newcomer. So anyway, we changed it. We voted on it, and now we have a speaker we just share for 40 minutes. So that's a long time, but that's pretty normal. So that's evolution. I'm talking about the home group tonight because this Area 83 weekend that's happening in general service, it got me it's such in a state of gratitude yesterday to realize I'm a small part of a great whole, that all the defiance, jealousy, envy, frustration, self-pity, foolish decisions, excitement, and worry, it's all in remission because of step 11 work, only because I found a God of my understanding through Alcoholics Anonymous. So I just want to be part of the ongoing history of AA. And I don't want it to crumble from within. And it's not me being the director. It's just me being what I've come to realize now, a steward. So I speak of the importance of a home group. That's why I can compliment a group like this that puts in so much work, Google Drive to run a meeting, stuff like that. Do they have volunteers? Why? Because I see new people coming to this meeting. I see new people coming to the one paragraph. And if Alcoholics Anonymous has been around for 90 years with personalities of the utmost insane, of the utmost selfish, of the utmost defiant, but really just broken souls, then surely Alcoholics Anonymous should continue for another 90 years. But it won't if guys like me just stop paying attention to what's the solution of Alcoholics Anonymous. If a member like me just doesn't have the courage and the step work to pull a guy aside, to not embarrass a guy, to say, hey man, you're still welcome here, but would you consider this? Just the way that guys did for me. But what I've come to realize is I'm not looking for sobriety. That's the treatment center work. I got sober maybe up north. I'm interested in recovery, right, from a hopeless state of mind and body. And how that will look in my life is humility in all my affairs. So I don't know exactly what humility looks like for Joe every day. But I learned recently that when I'm thinking so negative about myself, I'm no good. Terrible member. Could be a better son. Terrible ex-husband. Not a good dad. This beating of myself is the same lack of humility when I say, no one's a volunteer better coach than me. No one's a better DCM. No one can open a chair a meeting better than me. It is the exact same lack of humility, because in both instances of being prideful and being negative, I'm telling my higher power to back off. I am not allowing my God of my understanding to work through me. So what's been happening now? God, show me what you'd like me to do. Lead me. I can give my concerns to God. Help me change. And then I can just start showing up. I'm not worried so much about results. What a game changer. To actually have faith and trust in a God of my understanding, that I'm not concerned about the outcomes. Suddenly I can start showing up in all sorts of places. Not as a chameleon, or not like I used to be with my buddy there, pretending we played Division III soccer and part-time carpenters on the side. I can just show up as Joe And all these rules God sees fit for me. It's unbelievable. The crux. So I got here. Just give you one here. 7:35. Beautiful. Thanks everybody for your patience. I can share here about being dry in the rooms where I had a home group. Yeah, like I told you, for about 10 minutes. Service position. Yeah. Quoting the book like a hammer. You know, real nuts. Not attractive. But not working with a sponsor for so many years. But knowing guys, knowing lots of guys. I could walk in any meeting out here, knowing guys. And if I'm not working with a sponsor, I'm certainly not working with guys myself. So I think in 2020 or 2021, one of those years, whenever there was this outside lockdown political issue happening, I'm in a marriage at the time, very young kids. In Toronto, the government asked us to start wearing something on our face July 7th, 2021 or 2020. I remember calling the mother of my kids, we're married at the time, and said, okay, I'm going to put on an umpire mask. I said, I'm going to be real safe. I'm going to put on a Grand Fuhrer goalie mask. I'm going to be safe. That kind of arrogance, that kind of defiance, that kind of a-holeness, I did all my life. Oh, you think there's rules? Well, I'll show you what I think about these rules. Oh, let me interpret the rules that I'd like the way to interpret. And let me make everyone know that I'm interpreting this way. Can't drink in public? Well, I'll drink in public. That comment, though I actually never wore the Pat Borders mask, cage mask into a grocery store, that was enough in that moment in a parking lot of the building her and I both worked at, but it was the summer, so she was at home with the little kids, beautiful little kids. I'm grateful. I have a relationship with them today. That led to this outburst of dopamine and serotonin that most folks get from joy and happiness that I get from scathing another individual. Because when I feel threatened, I go on the attack. And I ripped the mother of my kids to shreds. I don't know, maybe for 35 minutes. And it didn't end there. And it was a year of that real family law. Oh, but not for a brief moment where I'm welcomed back into the house. I stopped doing the step work with my sponsor who heard me share about panic attacks and said he had panic attacks and this was the solution. I had a step 11 deficiency. So I start doing the work with him, but I get welcomed back into the matrimonial home. So guess what happens? I stop doing the work right away. Leads to more family law. And at the end of August 2021, it's on. And suddenly my life is turned upside down. I can't see the kids. The employer doesn't want, I made a decision, so the employer doesn't want me. And I'm going through a real messy divorce that's costing lots of money. And the anger, the anger, I would gossip about their mom with my mom. And you know what that's doing to my mom? It's driving my mom nuts. She's probably getting older and more sick because I'm just sharing everything. It's nuts. And it's so expensive. God get my attention through money. And I can't see those kids. But suddenly I'm beaten into a state of reasonableness that I am now working with the guy I call my sponsor. Joe, we're going to take up step 1 on Friday, 4 p.m. Okay. I did it. He suggested I walk around the block with my eyes closed, slow. He suggested I start praying slow. He suggested I pick up the feather and put down the hammer in all my affairs. Because when I lose my keys, I let everyone know I lose my keys. I'm just rumbling for the keys, right? When I see the driving limit was changed overnight in Toronto. I let the politicians know via phone calls and emails. This is a 6-lane road. It was engineered. Civil engineers said it's 60 kilometers. I got high on these political letters. Not that I'm a politician, but I'm like the retired businessman in Florida complaining about the states of the nation. I was so distracted by outside issues that my sponsor brought me back to earth, and I had to slow down. And I would share in such a way that talked about nothing. I mean, if it sounds like that today, oh man, that's disappointing. But I was never sharing about my experience. Hence, I wasn't working with anyone. Hence I was staying sick. Nothing will ensure immunity from worrying in intensive work with another worrier, another alcoholic. Well, if I'm just quoting the book, I'm not sharing about what's going on in my life and how I'm, changing. I'm working with no one. That's what happened. So suddenly I start working with this guy, still my sponsor today, and things are changing. Not overnight. The employer doesn't need me back. Family law, at one point, the lawyer says, Joe, I've never had a more difficult client in my 40 years practicing law. Oh, sounds like I'm getting offended. I attack. I said, what about the guys who don't want to see what about the guys who don't pay? What? Deflect, such a coward. In the end, I proceed with the whole journey. I suddenly put aside family law and I just focus on recovery. I put recovery first. And there's a guy in Markham. He's a kind of a comedian when he speaks, but he says when he puts recovery first, everything in his life becomes first class. So suddenly my life was becoming okay, maybe not first class, but wow, manageable. The employer says, come on back, Joe. We got a dress shirt for you. I used to just wear a blue uniform. We're going to let you be in charge of a few things. Really, a steward? Okay. I got this photo on this card of mine, the access card. It is the most nervous picture of Joe A. I've ever seen. A real little nerd who just went, protest the hero, trying to battle some outside issue with a big company. I just welcome back, and I got a tie that I can't even tie. It's probably from my wedding. Some tailor did it, many years ago. And I'm showing up in a dress shirt with a new position of stewardship. And I get promoted again later on. Suddenly, I'm able to coach the kid, my son. Suddenly, I'm able to volunteer at another building on Sunday nights, working with children, Sunday afternoons working with kids. Suddenly, in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm taking guys through the work. When my sponsor said I had a step 11, when he had a step 11 deficiency, I was inclined to start working on my prayer life, my meditation life. Could I pray for a minute and meditate for 2? Some sort of ratio like that. My sponsor suggested that I used, again, he talks about his own experience, but that I would talk fast. And a guy like me, when I'm talking fast, it's manipulation to the 3rd degree. Because when I'm talking, not breathing, there is zero opportunity for God to get involved through my words, and even less of an opportunity for the person who may or may not be knowing we're conversing to talk. So suddenly I really, and I still practice. You know why I learned to practice this? The occasional time I get asked to read the 12 steps at a meeting or the 12 traditions. I was a real robot racing through. I said, I'm going to show everyone how fast I can read this. Yeah, I tell you what that looks like. That looks like a guy who needs to work with a sponsor because it is too quick. So now I can slow down, breathe, God get involved. The way the family law case played out, it played out the way God wanted it to play out. The kids didn't have to move. I'm asked to share financially what I'm supposed to share. And then at Christmas time this year, I was finally able to make good on this appointment to do the step 9 amends with the mom of my kids. It was after a kid's Christmas concert. She comes, we sit in the same pew now, perfectly normal. Said, hey, would you walk into the parking lot? Would you like to go for dinner? Imagine so delirious. I asked her, would you like to go for dinner? Absolutely not. I said, nope, sorry. What I meant to say was, do you have time to hear me out on this step 9 work, on this amends? She knows the program. We've known each other many years. She goes, yeah, Joe, I got 30 minutes for you. I'm going to set a timer. She's a teacher. Where would you like to do it, Joe? You want to go to the house or the coffee shop? I said the house would be good. Would you like a tea? Sounds great. So nice, right? It's a privilege. I book an appointment for amends of this magnitude. It was suggested, not just manipulating and showing up. It's my turn. I'm here to bring up the past. Are you ready for it? That step 9 work was something I said, I feel I had harmed you in this way. What can I do to make it right? Is there anything you'd like to share? These were the questions I was to ask and suggest. What I learned was it wasn't the marriage that actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't the fact that when she was vegetarian and I would always begrudge buying her vegetarian foods and make her feel less than. That didn't bother her. What she really hated was during the family law time when I couldn't see the kids, when I would call them on video call and I say, oh, what's your uncle doing? Oh, what's your aunt doing? And I called them overweight and I called their aunt and uncle overweight. And I said, why? Because I'm jealous. And I couldn't see the kids, but they could. So this behavior during the family law that I exposed on the kids, ridiculing their mom's family and their mom. This is what made their mom cry during that amends. She says, Joe, you don't deserve to see me cry. And I just absorbed. Less manipulator, less rationalizing. I let her speak. She goes, we were scared of you, Joe. She goes, were you drinking? I said, no. Were you on drugs? No. She goes, the anger in your eyes was red like a bull. We were scared of you, Joe. This is me. I hadn't drank since 2011. This is happening 2021, 2022. I listened to her. I asked, okay, what can I do to make this right? She goes, I don't know. Whatever you seem to be doing seems to be okay. Right? It seemed good. It was good. It was a good amends. I was hurt, but I didn't have to rationalize, defend myself like I would in the past. Called my sponsor before and after. That was good. I invited God into the room during that, right? I thank God for the experience. And it took me, that was a Sunday night. It took until about Wednesday to feel okay because it was a pounding. And things were really amazing. And in January, after I dropped my boy off from hockey, he said, hey, Dad, you want to come in? I'll ask Mom, you can play FIFA or NHL on the video game? Hey, that was working out great. That was cool. I did that a couple of times. Wow, I felt really gifted. There was an Olympic hockey game maybe a month ago now on a Sunday. I took my daughter to the Sunday building we go to in the morning. I said, why don't you call your mom and see if we can watch that overtime? Canada was playing USA in hockey. She called her mom. The mom said yes. My former in-laws were there. The parents, good enough rapport with them. And the mom goes, Joe, are you coming in to watch? So meanwhile, I've been in that house to play video games with my son. I say, yeah, is that okay? She goes, yeah. And it's a good time. I just stay for the loss. I don't linger around. I leave my daughter there, say, hey, I'm going to go back to that Sunday building. Why don't you stay with your grandparents? Sounds great, Dad. Thank you. I'll pick you up in 2 hours. But something shifted in February. And the whole point of the story is that, I made the amends and I feel good. And I didn't manipulate that amends, so I don't think. But something changed in February. And I don't know. Now my son's not going to play on the hockey team we coach next year. Her mom wrote me a big letter. Like, it kind of reminded me of that family law letter. Like, at least there's no lawyer involved, $1,800 an hour combined. And she wrote me this big letter about coaching and bonding. On a Wednesday, I responded on a Sunday after consulting with others. She responded immediately. And what was written, what God wanted me to read was that it was that extra time with me and my son driving to these rinks and coaching him as an assistant volunteer coach was causing him mental stress. And that's why he's not going to play next year. Oh man, that hurt. And I didn't respond back. If my first addiction is dopamine rushes from anger and politically charged self-righteous letters, I didn't write her back. But something has shifted there. And you know what? That's okay. Because what I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, nothing is permanent. And it's just a season of growth or self-pity. And now that I recall, if she says, Joe, oh yeah, how can I make this right? She goes, yeah, keep doing what you're going to do. But I'm scared. I remember the quote, I'm scared the shoe might drop or something to that effect. Their mom, we've known each other since 1997, right? Their mom had seen Joe get normal for a bit, get grounded, talk slower for a bit, maybe, and then instantly go wild. So that's okay. So it's okay. But this whole thing has taught me to just become an approachable person. In step, what time is it here? I lied. I did like they say about drunkalogs. I'm not going to lead with a drunkalog. And then I talk a drunkalog. I say, I'm not going to talk for 45 minutes. I'll talk for 48. I'm a better member in Alcoholics Anonymous now with the hardships I've gone through. And everybody may go through different hardships. I'm a better member of Alcoholics Anonymous now because I share self-honesty. I work with a sponsor. I work with some guys. The traditions have saved my life. Tradition 10, when I put Joe in tradition 10, that I should have no opinion on outside issues and Joe should avoid public controversy. Listen, I can still see my kids. I can still drop them off. Their mom doesn't. I can still say hello to their mom, right? Tradition 10. Tradition 1, common welfare first. And step 11. Thank you, everyone, for being here. That is plenty for me. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder to subscribe, like, or follow if you like the show on any of your favorite listening platforms. If you like the speakers and other content on the podcast, please show us some love by leaving a review and consider making a PayPal contribution to help keep the show going at paypal.me/a shot glass of recovery. Every dollar makes a difference, and we thank you. Our speakers come from my AA home group, AA Solution Seekers. We meet every day at 7 a.m., so pop in sometime and say hello. Until next time, thanks for joining me on a shot glass of recovery.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.